sacrifice it. I'll give it up to stay here and nurse you, and the three of us will go down together in this nightmare cesspool. I mean, if I was a parent and my child had a chance to escape from a dictatorship, I would say, run for your life. And any parent who would say, no, the child should sacrifice to stay by his aged parents, in my opinion, is corrupt. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what Ayn Rand did, didn't she?
Absolutely. She left her entire family. To her, it was like she was choking in Russia. You know, her first novel was called Airtight, and the idea was, that was her working title. It came out as We the Living. The idea was you can't breathe in a dictatorship. And she fled for her life.
Yeah.
There, the trick in the situation you raised would be, what if you were passionately in love with your wife, really in love, I mean, so in love that you didn't want to live without her, and you had a career that you really loved, and you had a chance to escape and you couldn't take her with you. That would be a situation where you would be really torn, you know, as to what to do.
Yeah.
But what you would basically have to do is weigh. If you're rational, I would say you have to weigh somehow, decide by some means which is really more important to you. Is it, you know, is it the case that you simply cannot live without this woman? Then you would have to say, I give up my attempt at a career, but the problem is going to be you're going to end up miserable and resenting her, because without some productive creative fulfillment, what is going to keep you going and give you purpose in life?
Yeah.
So probably what you have to do, and what your wife would say, is if you're the only one that can get out, I still love you, but you've got to have a life. Life comes before love. First you have to live, and that includes your creative work. Then you have room for life, for love. That's my answer to you, David. Thanks.
That sounds good.
Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate your call.
Thank you.
Now let's go to line 8. Bob, welcome to the show. I understand you're in favor of sacrifice.
Well, yes, I am, but I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
Have you ever given up something for the sake of something else?
I have chosen one thing above another, but it's not what I gave up is not something I valued more than the thing I got.
So in other words, yes.
Well, you're going on to the part that I'm going to cover at 3 o'clock.
Well, why don't you just say yes or no?
Yes,
okay.
Sure I have, but let me
say this then. According to my dictionary, that's the exact definition of
That is
sacrifice.
Not the definition of a sacrifice. I gave you my definition of sacrifice.
So I have a bad dictionary then.
No, sir, because you're going on to the other cover.
I think what you're doing is just twisting a word to fit it in your ideology.
Let me ask you a question, Bob. You're taking the line then that anytime anybody does anything, it's a sacrifice, right? Now, you answer my question. Isn't that true? According to your definition.
No, well, that's...
Because anytime you do anything, you're giving up something else, right?
When someone thinks a thought, I'm talking about relation to something else. When they give up something for something else.
Well, we always do.
That's simply a definition.
Excuse me.
How can you have to start with something? I start with definitions.
Well, I started with a definition too, but I'm asking you a question.
Where do you get it from?
I'm asking you a question. Are you going to either answer my question or you're going to be off the air? When you make a choice, do you ever make a choice for something without giving up all the other things at the same time?
Yes.
Give me an example.
No. You have to give up.
You have to. So according to you, every action in life involves a sacrifice.
That's the definition of a sacrifice.
That's exactly a cover-up that I'm going to cover at 3 o'clock.
Well, that's the definition. Can I
That
ask
is
you
not
something?
a definition. If every action is a sacrifice, you make the term meaningless.
And I have a bad dictionary.
Well, you certainly have a bad dictionary, but listen to me at 3 o'clock. I got to go because I got a whole board. I got to go. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate your call. Margaret on line 9. Welcome to the Leonard Peikoff Show.
Hi.
Hi.
I was very touched by what you said about a God who would want you to sacrifice and everything and make you feel utterly worthless, because as an ex-Christian, I came to understand, that that's exactly what happens. And it reminded me of something I read in psychology about people who are abused bonding with their abusers.
Yes.
Have you heard about that?
Yes, I have.
Abused children who bond with the parent that abuses them because it's the only way you can live with them.
That's right.
You're desperate. People who are desperate for love, as I believe that Christians are, I believe we all are ready to give their lives to a God they don't really know and don't really understand in return for something, some kind of self-esteem.
Well, I think you're right. You know, you said we're all desperate for love. We all want love, but the question is, do we want to earn that love or not? I think there's a huge difference between feeling, I have a value and I can earn somebody's love by showing them my character. I can deserve their love, as against I am a nothing, a worm, and all I can expect is mercy, unearned love from some supreme being who'll forgive me for what I am.
Yes, exactly.
And if you have that opinion of yourself, then you're going to look for some supernatural love because you can't expect to find it here in this world.
Yeah, that's right. I agree with you completely, and I think a lot of people are quite misled over that and never do really understand about love or about independence or self-esteem because they're not allowed to. They have to be beholden to a God that somebody created.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Margaret. Thank you for your call. I appreciate your call.
Bye-bye.
On line 10, let's have Joe. Welcome to the Leonard Peikoff Show.
Hi.
Hi, Joe.
I'm against sacrifice.
Okay.
And I had two short examples of, I think, just small little things, but just typical of what you find in this country. One is, like with the Democrats in this President Clinton's $30 billion crime bill.
Yes.
He had a provision for the midnight basketball. Now, in the midnight basketball, under the requirements of setting this up, 2% of the league, a minimum of 2%, had to be drug addicts. So what you have is
that right in the law?
Yeah, it's in there that 2% also 2% also had to be HIV positive. But just on the small example of rationally
how much percent had to be mentally retarded?
No, they didn't have that. It was just drug addicts and HIV. But
so they had to actually test and to say, sorry, you can't get into this program because you're not HIV positive. You're not a drug
it's
addict.
like we would like to give you a chance to play basketball, Joey, but you're just not doing enough.
You're just
crap.
not defective enough, right?
Yeah. I mean, and it's easy to see the insanity of that right there, but you can't even rationally choose a basketball team on the principle of if the operating principle is a sacrifice.
Absolutely.
And what I noticed in the Republicans, if you notice, neither party will come out for the individual, which I think is the primary unit of humanity. What they both have latched on to is what they call the family values. You know, they have to have
a whole show on family.
Yeah, they have to have a larger group.
Right.
So, and what this does is this allows them to have very shifting definitions about what they consider a family. You know, like the Republicans could say, well, single mom, you're not a family. So that allows, you're supposed to sacrifice to your family, and they are the ones which choose what is a family. And of course, the Democrats...
It's a chain of sacrifice all the way. The individual sacrifices to his family.
Right.
The family sacrifices for the neighborhood. The neighborhood sacrifices for the community. The community sacrifices for the nation. The United States is supposed to sacrifice for mankind, and now the ecologists, the animal rights people think mankind should sacrifice for the animals.
Exactly.
And now then the total ecologists come in and think all living things should sacrifice for rivers and the planet.
Right.
And the only last stage is for somebody to come from outer space and say we should blow up the entire Earth in order to feed the energy to another solar system.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's total destruction down the line.
And it's really just a power trick because they don't have a rational definition. By making you sacrifice to an arbitrary group, they can control what the definition is. Like even the Democrats, they'll say on family values, well, you know, like even if you are a mom and dad, kids, well, that's just an Ozzie and Harriet family. So even a rational definition of what a family is, they can define that. So, well, that's just
It's unreal, right?
Yeah, it's unreal. It's all based on sacrifice and non-objective definition.
Yes, it is. I agree with you. Thanks very much, Joe. I appreciate your comment.
All right.
Earl, on line 11, welcome to the Leonard Peikoff Show.
Yes, Leonard.
Now, you're ambivalent, I'm told.
No, I'm not. I agree with you. I think it's a series of choices. I don't believe in sacrifice. I believe, like noblesse oblige, but you do have obligations.
Now, what obligations? What obligations? Chosen or unchosen obligations?
Well, there's an obligation right now to fight what's going on that's corrupt in this country. It's an obligation. It's not a sacrifice. So
but it's an obligation that you chose because there's something you want selfishly for this country.
I don't disagree with you. I totally agree with you.
Well, then there's no...
I have a side point. I don't want to get off the track too far, but you knew Ayn Rand quite well. I've always been curious of why she chose Frank Lloyd Wright as the archetype of the artist and the individual.
Well, she didn't choose him as a personal human being. She chose him as an architect.
Well,
she didn't like him as a... She
well,
knew...
he was a very bad architect.
No, but she thought he was a great architect, so it was a purely architectural judgment.
Okay, and then she was blind in that area. You can't be blind.
Well, all you can say is you disagree with her. But the relevant point to this show is that Frank Lloyd Wright was never intended to be the archetype from which Howard Rourke came.
That's what I was always... I thought he was more like Ellsworth Toohey in reality than Howard Rourke.
His personal life was not too hot. No,
well, even in his so-called artistic life, he really mutilated art.
Well, that's a different show. Thank you, Earl. I appreciate your call. And Edith, welcome on line 7. Welcome to the Leonard Peikoff Show. Edith, are you there? Hello?
Hello?
Are you there?
Yes.
You got 1 minute, Edith.
Okay, I want to know if you would feel the same about sacrifice if it was you that was being sacrificed by somebody else.
I think it would be depraved if somebody else tried to sacrifice me. Give me an example.
Well, I mean, a person is sacrificed all the time.
Like, for instance?
Well, when you leave your family, when you leave employment, when you leave...
Oh, no.
When you retire.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Sacrifice doesn't mean not getting what you want from somebody else.
It's not a matter of what you want. It's what actually happens to you.
If I go to... Let's take a simple question, Edith, because we have 1 minute. I go up to you and I say, I need a job. I want a job from you. And you say no. Have you sacrificed me?
I've never had anybody ask me for a job.
Well, but supposing they did, would your negative answer mean you sacrificed them? They have no claim on you. Sacrifice is giving up a value. I have no claim to get my values from you. A sacrifice is something that I would do when I gave up something or that someone would take of mine away from me. But the unearned that doesn't belong to me, I can't claim it's a sacrifice if somebody doesn't give it to me.
Well, what do you think about the end of life when a person gives up their life?
You don't give up your life unless you commit suicide.
No.
And then it's not a sacrifice.
People give up their lives all the time.
How?
I don't know, but I've seen an awful lot of
bad
scenarios at the end of life.
You have to tell me what you're talking about. People don't...
They're just not wanted by the ones around them, and by, defect, they pass out of existence.
No, it doesn't happen that way. You got to be more specific, Edith, and I have to thank you for your call, but we have to go to station identification, and then we're going to be back, and I'm going to cover the other half, the idea that one of the earlier callers alluded to, that really every time you make a choice, that's a sacrifice. But we'll get to that right after station identification. It's 3:02. My name is Leonard Peikoff, and today our topic is what is sacrifice? Before we go to more callers, I want to welcome those who join us at 3 o'clock. At the first half hour, we've been talking about the idea that there really is no such thing as sacrifice, because whatever you do, you're really pursuing your highest goals, which I think is ridiculous, and I've stated my reason why. And now I want to go to the other confusion on this issue, the type of person who says everything you do involves a sacrifice. Why? Because you always give up something whenever you act. Here is this example. You go to school, then you have to give up leisure. You have to give up endless parties. You have to give up sleeping all day. You even go to a restaurant, eat a piece of pie for dessert, well, then you have to give up cake. If you want health, then you have to give up drugs, and you have to exercise, and you have to watch your diet. Everything has its price. Every value, big or small, takes some effort, some work, some choice, some decision for this thing rather than another. Now, my answer to the people who say everything involves a sacrifice is the following, which I think is really crucial. Paying the price for what you want is not a sacrifice. It's a corruption of language to call paying the price for what you want a sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice if you really want the goal and you don't expect something for nothing. Now, I say only a bum, a spiritual, if not necessarily a material bum, expects something for nothing. Only a bum calls work a sacrifice. If the price of your values, the things you really want, if the price really is a sacrifice, then you are a moral bum at heart. There's something bad about you if you resent the work required to get what you value. If you value it and a certain cause is necessary, you are wrong